everyone, welcome back. So you've been digging deep into crypto lately, huh? And it looks like you've stumbled on a pretty fascinating connection with global trade.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting intersection.
We're diving into an article called Pasted Text today.
All right.
And the big question we're going to be exploring is how those international trade tensions, especially the ones sparked by President Trump's tariffs back in 2019, how do they impact the already crazy world of Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's really fascinating here is the way that, these events that seem so deep connected at first glance are actually really intertwined.
Right. Yeah.
We often think about cryptocurrency as like existing in its own little digital bubble, but the reality is it's very much a part of the global financial system.
Yeah. And we saw that play out in a pretty dramatic way right after Trump announced those tariffs.
Yeah.
Crypto values just tanked. Bitcoin fell 7%. And then, you have other cryptocurrencies like Ether and that CoinDesk 20 index, which is tracking a bunch of the major cryptocurrencies. They plunged even further, some of them by about 20%.
Yeah. And to really understand why that happened, we need to sort of step back and look at the scale of these tariffs.
Yeah. How big are we talking?
So we're talking about a 25% tariff on imports from both Mexico and Canada.
Wow.
And a 10% tariff on goods coming in from China. And so that impacted roughly $1.6 trillion worth of trade with those three countries alone.
Okay, so that really puts it into perspective. No wonder the crypto market was freaking out.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder, is Bitcoin a safe haven in times of global uncertainty? Or is it just another risky asset? It seems to be playing both roles at the same time.
It really is a paradox. Bitcoin is often seen as a long-term hedge against things like inflation, especially with governments printing, more and more money. And since Bitcoin has that fixed supply, some investors see it as a way to protect their purchasing power over the long term. But at the same time, in the short term, it reacts a lot like a high-risk asset. So when anxieties are rising, like they were with these trade wars, investors tend to pull back from anything that's seen as volatile. And crypto definitely fits that description.
Yeah. Short-term jitters, long-term potential.
Yeah,
Exactly. Makes sense. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. We came across an expert, Jeff Park, who's the head of alpha strategies at Bitwise Asset Management.
Okay.
And he had a totally different take. He actually argued that, a sustained trade war could actually benefit Bitcoin. Wild, right?
Yeah.
How so? Okay, so his argument is based on this idea that if trade tensions drag on, it could actually weaken the U.S. dollar. And if the dollar starts to lose its global dominance, alternative assets like Bitcoin might start to look more appealing. It's a pretty thought-provoking idea, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. It definitely challenges the conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
So how would a trade war actually weaken the dollar? What's the mechanism there?
Okay, so think of it this way. If other countries start to lose faith in the stability of the U.S. dollar, they might start looking for other currencies to use for international transactions.
Right.
Or, they might start holding reserves in things like gold or even Bitcoin.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a shift in global power dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin, because it's decentralized and not controlled by any single government, could become a much more attractive option in a world where traditional financial systems are getting, kind of disrupted.
Yeah. And I guess that makes sense, especially in the context of, if trade wars become the norm and global trade is constantly in flux, it's you need some sort of stable, decentralized alternative.
Exactly. So we need to think about both the immediate reactions and the potential long-term consequences of these global events. Speaking of reactions, there was a lot of talk about Bitcoin's support level at $90,000 during this time.
Right.
Can you break down what that means for people who aren't, professional traders?
Yeah, sure. So think of a support level as a price point where a lot of buyers tend to step in, and that prevents the price from falling further. It's kind of like a psychological safety net.
Oh.
Yeah. So some analysts were warning that if Bitcoin dropped much below $90,000, it could trigger a huge wave of selling, potentially driving the price way down towards $80,000.
So it's like a tipping point.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. But even with these price drops, I'm guessing seasoned crypto traders weren't exactly panicking.
No, probably not. The crypto market is famous for being volatile. Price corrections of 30% or even more are actually pretty common, especially during periods of really rapid growth, which we were seeing back then. This particular event was definitely dramatic, but for experienced investors, it was probably just, another bump in the road.
As the other Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as you continue to explore the world of cryptocurrency, what does all of this mean for you? Well, here's the big takeaway. Global events, even ones that seem totally unrelated to finance, can ripple through the crypto market.
Right.
It's a good reminder that our world is incredibly interconnected.
Definitely.
You know, what happens in one place can really impact your investments, even if they seem, totally separate.
It's all connected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a final, very thought-provoking question. If tariffs and trade wars become the new normal, will cryptocurrencies actually become more appealing as a safe haven? Or will they be seen as too volatile in an already unstable environment? Something to ponder as you continue your deep dive. Definitely a lot to think about. Thanks for bringing this up.
Of course.
This has been an interesting one.
Absolutely.